Hi class, so from this video we're going to start talking about chapter 6, government influence on exchange rates. Chapter objectives. Describe the exchange rate system used by various governments. Describe the development and implications of a single European currency. Explain how governments can use direct intervention to influence exchange rates. Explain how governments' interventions in the foreign exchange market can affect economic conditions. Okay, so we're gonna, in general, in sum, that's to discuss how government can, how different governments' policies can affect the exchange rate system. Okay, so let's first look at different exchange rate systems. The first one is fixed exchange rate system. Okay, and the second one is freely floating. Third one, managed flow. Fourth one, pegged. Exchange rate systems can be classified according to the degree of government control and fall into these four categories. As we can see, the first one is mostly controlled, and then it gets better when we're doing freely floating. Okay, and managed float and pegged are in between. Fixed exchange rate system. Exchange rates are either held constant or allowed to fluctuate only within very narrow boundaries. Central bank can reset a fixed exchange rate by devaluing or reducing the value of the currency against other currencies. Central bank can also revalue or increase the value of its currency against other currencies. Okay, so in a fixed exchange rate system, I guess the key words here is that we need to, the exchange rates are constant or they can only fluctuate in very narrow boundaries. Okay, and for central banks, it can either reduce or increase the value of the currency. Okay, this is fixed exchange rate system, very much managed. Examples: Bretton Woods agreements. When each currency was valued in terms of gold. Smithsonian Agreement called for devaluation of the US dollar by about 8% against other currencies. Advantage of fixed exchange rate system: insulate the country from risk of currency appreciation, allow firms to engage in direct foreign investment without currency risk. Disadvantage: risk that government will alter value of currency. Country and MSC may be more vulnerable to economic conditions in other countries. Practice question. Under fixed exchange rate system, A. A foreign exchange market does not exist. B. Central bank intervention in the foreign exchange market is not necessary. C. Central bank intervention in the foreign exchange market is often necessary. D. Central bank intervention in the foreign exchange market is not allowed. The right answer is C. Central bank intervention in the foreign exchange market is often necessary for the fixed exchange rate system. Freely floating exchange rate system. Exchange rates are determined by market forces without government intervention. Okay, so this is on the other extreme compared to the fixed exchange rate system, where the rates are determined by the market. okay, without government intervention. Advantage. The country is more insulated from inflation of other countries, also from unemployment of other countries. It does not require central bank to maintain exchange rates within specified boundaries. Disadvantage can adversely affect a country that has high unemployment or a country with high inflation. The third type is managed flow. Okay, something in between. The governments sometimes intervene to prevent their currencies from moving too far in a certain direction. Critics suggest that managed flow allows a government to manipulate exchange rates to benefit its own country at the expense of others. Currencies of most large developed countries are allowed to float, although they may be periodically managed to their respective central banks. Okay, so here is the floating rate system of different. Here's a graph showing the countries adopting the floating rate system, including Afghanistan, Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Bolivia, Canada, Chile, Denmark, Euro participants, Hungary, India, Indonesia, Israel, Jamaica, Japan, Mexico, Norway, Paraguay, Peru, Poland, Romania, Russia, Singapore, South Africa, South Korea, Sweden, Switzerland, Taiwan, Thailand, UK, and Venezuela. Okay, so most countries, I would say, are using this floating rate system. Pegged exchange rate system. Home currency value is pegged to one foreign currency or to an index of currencies. May attract foreign investment because the exchange rate is expected to remain stable. Weak economic or political conditions can cause firms and investors to question whether the peg will be broken. Examples: Europe's snake agreement, European monetary system, Mexico's pegged system, China's pegged exchange rate, Venezuela's pegged exchange rate. Currency boards use to peg currency values. A system for pegging the value of the local currency to some other specified currency. The board must maintain currency reserves for all the currency that it has printed. Interest rates of pegged currencies. Interest rate will move in tandem with the interest rate of the currency to which it is tied. Exchange rate risk of a pegged currency provides examples of countries that have pegged the exchange rate of their currency to a specific currency. Currencies are commonly pegged to the US dollar or to euro. Okay, so if a country's currency is pegged to US dollar or euro, then the board must maintain the reserves for that currency, and the interest rate will move as how that currency is moving. Okay, for example, Bahamas is pegged to US dollar. Barbados, Bermuda, Honda are also pegged to US dollar. Latvia, Lithuania are pegged to euro. Saudi Arabia is pegged to US dollar. Tunisia is pegged to a portfolio of currencies in which the euro represents about 67 of the weight. United Arab Emirates is pegged to US dollar. Venezuela is pegged to US dollar. Okay, so that's 4 types of different exchange rate system. Okay, again, it's the most strict one, fixed, and then freely floating, not managed, and then something between managed float and pegged. Dollarization is another concept we're going to discuss today. It's a replacement of a foreign currency with US dollars. This process is a step beyond a currency board because it forces the local currency to be replaced by the US dollar. Although dollarization and a currency board both attempt to peg the local currency's value, the currency board does not replace the local currency with dollars. Okay, so for currency board or dollarization, they're both pegging the local currency to US dollar or another foreign currency. Okay, but for currency board, we're not replacing anything. For dollarization, we're replacing the foreign currency or the local currency with dollars. Practice. Dollarization refers to the replacement of local currency with US dollars. It is true. Another key concept here is a single European currency. Okay, it's about the monetary policy in the Eurozone. We have European Central Bank based in Frankfurt and is responsible for setting monetary policy for all participating European countries. The objective is to control inflation in the participating countries and to stabilize within reasonable boundaries the value of the euro with respect to other major currencies. Impact on firms in the Eurozone. The prices of products are now more comparable among European countries. Impact of financial flows in the Eurozone. Bond investors who reside in the Eurozone can now invest in bonds issued by governments and corporations in these countries without concern about exchange rate risk, as long as the bonds are denominated in euros. Okay, so Eurozone, the single European currency, and the common monetary policy in the Eurozone, these are actually good for the economy in the local area. Exposure of countries within the Eurozone. A single European monetary policy prevents any individual European country from solving local economic problems with its own unique monetary policy. Any given monetary policy used in the Eurozone during a particular period may enhance conditions in some countries and adversely affect others. Okay, so this is, I would say, a little bit risk or disadvantage of this common monetary policy in the Eurozone. It could affect some countries while benefiting the other ones. Impact of crisis within the Eurozone may affect the economic conditions of the other participating countries because they all rely on the same currency and the same monetary policy. Okay, so when you have crisis in one country, it's easier to spread that out. Okay, so I guess these risks are the concerns when people in Britain proposed about the Brexit. Okay, and as we all know, they quitted the Eurozone several years ago, and this issue still remains controversial. Practice. Countries that have adopted the euro must agree on a single monetary policy. Option is A. The right option is A. Okay, not fiscal, not worker compensation, not foreign relations. Reasons for government intervention. Number one, smooth exchange rate movements. If a central bank is concerned that its economy will be affected by abrupt movements in its home currency's value, it may attempt to smooth the currency movements over time. Number two, establish implicit exchange rate boundaries. Some central banks attempt to maintain their home currency rates with some unofficial implicit boundaries. Number three, respond to temporary disturbances. A central bank may intervene to insulate a currency's value from a temporary disturbance. Okay, such as financial crisis, such as the virus outbreak recently, central bank can do something to keep the currency value strong. Direct intervention. To force the dollar to depreciate, the Fed can intervene directly by exchanging dollars that it holds as reserves for other foreign currencies in the foreign exchange market. By flooding the market with dollars in this manner, the Fed puts downward pressure on the dollar. Okay, if it sells the dollar on the market and supply enough dollar, okay, it would force the dollar value to go down. On the other hand, if the Fed desires to strengthen dollar, it can exchange foreign currencies for dollars in the foreign exchange market, thereby putting upward pressure on the dollar. Okay, so the Fed could keep buying the dollar. Increase the demand for dollar would make the dollar value to go up. Okay, so in order to make the dollar value go down, we can increase the supply by exchanging dollar for other currency. In order to increase the dollar value, the Fed can increase the demand for dollar by exchanging foreign currencies for dollars. Okay, and both of these actions are called direct intervention. Okay, it's the Fed intervene directly by doing transactions for dollar in the market. Effects of direct central bank intervention in the foreign exchange market. Okay, so here we can see the Fed is affecting the value for the pound. Okay, in the first graph, the Fed exchanges dollar for pound. Okay, so the demand for pound goes up from this blue line D1 to gray line D2, while the supply of pound does not change. As a result, the value for pound would go up, okay, when the demand goes up. In the second graph, the Fed starts to exchange pound for dollar. Okay, so it's selling pound on the market. It is increasing the supply of the pound. So you can see our supply goes up from S1 to S2. Okay, and the value of pound goes down because the demand doesn't change. Some more discussion on direct intervention. Reliance on reserves. The potential effectiveness of a central bank's direct intervention is the amount of reserves that it can use. Okay, because direct intervention is trading the currency in the market. So central bank needs enough reserve to conduct the activities. Non-sterilized versus sterilized intervention. When the Fed intervenes in the foreign exchange market without adjusting for the change in the money supply, it is engaging in a non-sterilized intervention. In a sterilized intervention, the Fed intervenes in the foreign exchange market and simultaneously engages in offsetting transactions in the Treasury securities markets. Okay, in a sterilized intervention, besides selling or buying the dollar or the foreign currency in the foreign market to change the value of the currency, the Fed can also change the money supply. Speculating on direct intervention, some traders in the foreign exchange market attempt to determine when Federal Reserve intervention is occurring and the extent of intervention in order to capitalize on the anticipated results of the intervention effort. Okay, we always see these predictions on the news, whether the Fed would stimulate economy by or trying to increase the value of the dollar by carrying out some policies. And if you can predict accurately, you could speculate according to the direction of the currency you're predicting. Here shows us forms of central bank intervention in the foreign exchange market. Okay, we first has non-sterilized intervention to strengthen the Canadian dollar. The Federal Reserve can work with banks participating in the foreign exchange markets. Okay, by exchanging dollar for Canadian dollar, we are selling US dollar and purchasing Canadian dollar. So this way, we're increasing the demand for Canadian dollar and strengthening the Canadian dollar. Okay, and we're doing nothing else. So this is non-sterilized intervention. On the contrary, if we want to do a sterilized intervention to strengthen the Canadian dollar, besides doing what we have been doing, we can also issue Treasury securities to financial institutions that invest in Treasury securities. Okay, so we would, so the financial institutions have to pay US dollars for purchasing these Treasury securities. This way, Federal Reserve would collect back some US dollars, so it has enough US dollar reserves. Okay, after exchanging US dollar for Canadian dollar, the reserve in US dollar may decrease, and that's now sterilized intervention. But at the same time, if we issue Treasury securities and still increase the US dollar reserves, this is sterilized intervention. Okay. The two graphs below show the other direction. If it is non-sterilized intervention to weaken the Canadian dollar, we would sell Canadian dollar, okay, exchange Canadian dollar for US dollar. So we're selling Canadian dollar and purchasing US dollar, okay, and interacting with banks participating in the foreign exchange market. This way we can weaken the Canadian dollar value. If we want to do a sterilized intervention, besides doing these, we should also buy back Treasury securities. Okay, buy back Treasury securities from financial institutions that already invested in Treasury securities. Okay, so we purchase back Treasury securities and we pay US dollars out. Okay, when we are exchanging Canadian dollar for US dollar, we are increasing the reserve for US dollar in Fed, but by buying back Treasury securities, we decrease the US dollar reserves again. So this is a sterilized intervention. Okay, let's look at some practice problems here. To force the value of the pound to appreciate against the dollar, the Fed Reserve should A. Sell dollars for pounds in the foreign exchange market, and the European Central Bank should sell dollars for pounds in the foreign exchange market. Is this correct? Please read the other three options as well, and we'll discuss the right option after 30 seconds. Okay, if you need more time, you can pause the video right now to think on the question. If you're ready, you can continue with me to look at this question and discuss on the solution. Okay, so here the right option should be A. Okay, here we want the value of the pound to appreciate against the dollar, which means we want to increase the supply of the, if we want the value of pound to appreciate, we need to increase its demand. Okay, if we want to appreciate, we probably want to increase its demand. Or we can reduce its supply. Okay, but here all the options are about activities in the market. Okay, so here we're gonna try to increase the demand for a pound. Okay, so no matter it's conducted by the Federal Reserve or European Central Bank, we want to sell dollars for pounds so that the pound demand increases and the pound value increases against the dollar. Okay, so for Fed and for ECB, they should both sell dollar for pounds in the foreign exchange market. Okay, so for option B, sell dollar for pound is correct, but sell pound for dollar will make dollar to appreciate and make pound to depreciate. So this is not correct. Option C, sell pound for dollar, not correct. ECB should not intervene. This is not correct either. Okay, sell dollar for pounds. No, this is, yeah, this is correct. Sell pounds for dollars. No, this is not correct. Okay, only A has sell dollar for pounds for both agencies, and this is correct. Okay, another practice question here. to force the value of the British pound to depreciate against the dollar, what the Fed should do and what the Bank of England should do. Again, I'm gonna leave you 30 seconds here. Okay. Alright, if you need more time, you can pause the video now. Otherwise, you can come to the next slide. The right option here is C. Okay, we want the value of British pound to depreciate against the dollar. Okay, so we can probably decrease its, excuse me. We can decrease its supply. Oh, it's actually increase its supply. Okay, we can decrease the pound value by increase its supply. Okay, so if we sell pound for dollars for both Federal Reserve and Bank of England, they should both sell pound for dollars in the exchange market. Okay, so pound supply is going up, so its value goes down. Okay, dollar demand will go up, so its value will go up. Okay, for option A, sell dollar for pound, this is not correct. Sell dollar for pound, this is not correct. For option B, sell pound for dollar, this is correct. Sell dollar for pound, not correct. Option D, sell dollar for pound, not correct. Sell pound for dollar, this is correct. Okay, only C has both agencies sell pounds for dollars. And this will let the value of pound to depreciate and let dollar value to appreciate. Assume a central bank exchanges its currency for another foreign currencies in the foreign exchange market, but does not adjust for the resulting change in the money supply. This is an example of A, packed intervention, B, indirect intervention, C, non-sterilized intervention, D, sterilized intervention. Packed intervention, sterilized intervention. Remember the difference between non-sterilized intervention and sterilized intervention? For non-sterilized, we do something in the foreign exchange market, but we don't adjust it in the money supply, right? For sterilized intervention, we do something in the foreign exchange market and we do something in the money supply to offset the effect, right? And these are both C and D, they both fall into the category of direct intervention. Okay, so definitely not B, not A, not E. It should be C as our correct answer here. Okay, non-sterilized intervention does not adjust for the resulting change in the money supply. Okay, sterilized intervention does. If the Fed desires to weaken the dollar without affecting the dollar money supply, it should, okay, so without affecting the dollar money supply, non-sterilized intervention. Okay, we want to weaken the dollar, so we want to reduce its demand or increase its supply. I'll give you 30 seconds again so you can read all the 4 options and think about what is the right answer before we go to the next slide. Okay, so excuse me for saying that this is non-sterilized. This is actually sterilized intervention. Okay, so for non-sterilized intervention, it does not adjust for the resulting change in the money supply. But here, this example is a sterilized intervention because we will adjust the effect in the money supply. Okay, because we do not want to affect the dollar money supply. So besides doing something in the exchange markets, we will also do something to the money supply. Okay, so this is a sterilized intervention. And because, let's see, the right answer here should be A. Okay, because we want to weaken the dollar, so we need to either reduce the demand or increase the supply. Okay, if we exchange dollar for foreign currencies, we're increasing the supply, right? If we're selling dollars, it will weaken the dollar. Okay, but at the same time, the dollar reserve in the Fed will decrease. Okay, so in order to recollect back dollar, we're gonna sell some of the existing Treasury security holdings for dollars. Okay, so we have dollar reserves increase. Okay, we can have dollar reserves back. Option B, exchange foreign currencies for dollars. This will actually strengthen the dollar if we increase dollar demand like this. Sell some of its existing Treasury security holding dollars. Not right. Option C, exchange dollars for foreign. So B is not right for the first part. Option C, the first part is correct. Exchanging dollars for foreign currencies and buy existing Treasury securities with dollars. Okay, so we're already selling dollars. We're already reducing our dollar reserves. If we keep buying Treasury securities with dollars, it's gonna continue let the dollar reserve go down. So this is not correct. Option D, exchange foreign currencies for dollars. This is not correct. This is gonna strengthen the dollar. And buy existing Treasury securities with dollars. Okay. We don't even discuss the second part because the first part is not correct. Okay, so far in this video, in this long lecture, we've discussed the 4 different types of exchange rate systems. We discussed about dollarization. We discussed about the one single European currency in the Eurozone and common monetary policy. We also discussed about the direct intervention, including non-sterilized and sterilized intervention of the government, okay, to affect the exchange rate and the money supply. Okay, So this is the first part of chapter 6. Starting from the next video, I'm gonna start talking about the indirect intervention of the government. All right, so I'll talk to you, review. Make sure you review what we have discussed so far, and I'll talk to you again in the next video.